Ladies and gentlemen, I was asked to come and introduce him. I met Eric when he was a 22 or 23-year-old lad, and he came down from Lancashire for an interview at Bonham's, which is my family business in Knightsbridge. And he got a job. I've known him for 45 years. We've been colleagues for 45 years. Well, actually, not colleagues, probably 30 of those years we were colleagues. And in the last 10 or 15 years, both of us have moved away from the old family firm. I had custody of it for about 30-odd years, and then I sold it after 220 years of being in the family. It was necessary at the time. I'm not going to go into that because this is about Eric today. Eric started on the publicity front probably in his late 20s or early 30s, and was one of a number of Bonham's people who were the experts on the Antiques Roadshow. And since he first was on the Antiques Roadshow, he's on the same type of program to do with antiques, of course, because Eric is a true expert. I see a lot of people who talk seemingly quite knowledgeable on the television. But the real experts you will see are on the Antiques Roadshow, and they seriously are fantastic experts. And Eric has probably...
Sorry, I missed that bit, Nick. Could you? Sorry.
And Eric is one of those fantastic experts. I think probably at this stage, I'm going to ask Eric to kick off with his literary life.
Yeah,
You're not going to come back up here and sit next door to me,
I'll come up there for when we... because there's a bottle of gin on there. You've noticed that, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Right, so we can see.
Eric Knowles.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, very, very kind. It's very important that I bond with you all as quickly as possible. Okay, so I've got to come clean. I've got to, I just apologize for being so much shorter in real life than you may have given me credit for on the TV. Today I'm going to be giving you a little insight into René Lalique. One of the areas that I specialized in at Bonham's, because I had to be a specialist, was on Lalique glass. And I think our first auction made £50,000, and then within less than 3 years, we made $250,000 one evening, one crazy evening. I don't think we could repeat that, Nick, but anyway. So René Lalique, what do I know about René Lalique? Well, first of all, he was born in 1860. I should point out that I didn't take French at school, but I've learned most of my French from knowing about René Lalique, topped up by watching back episodes of Allo, Allo. Okay. So listen carefully. I'm going to give this talk only once. Are you with me? Right. So he's born in 1860. He's born in the Champagne district of France, near Reims, or if you prefer, Reims. At the age of 2, the family moved to Paris. His father is described as a purveyor of fancy goods. Now, nobody has a clue what he was selling, what fancy goods. And a young René would return to his mother's maternal area around Reims, and he would be out there in the field, and he was sketching. He was just one of those people who could just almost draw instantly. You know, it's like when you were at school and you were in the art class, there was always somebody who could draw better than anybody else. You know, I think it's genetic, although having had lunch with David Shepherd, I am prone to actually name drop from time to time. He showed me his early work and it was terrible. And he said he had to be tutored. But having said that, René Lalique is supposedly was supposedly to have actually painted on little ivory panels, which were probably or possibly little piano keys on ivory. I've never seen these. This may be apocryphal, so I mention that because if I'm not 100% certain, I say as much. Anyway, would you like to meet the man? First of all, let me tell you, at the age of 12, he gets a position at the Lycée Turgot in Paris, and basically he's there until he's 17 years of age. Unfortunately, at the age of 16, his father passed away, and his mother, who was quite determined, she is what we call in Burnley a femme formidable. Okay. And she found him a position with a man called Louis Ocon. Ocon being one of Paris's top jewelers. But here he is, the man. Can you see him? And you've all got lots of. You can see all this at the back, can't you? You can. That's wonderful. It's a great auditorium, this, isn't it? I'm sorry to go. I go off piece now and then, but I look at this and think, God, so 1860. Because my father was an architect and structural engineer, and I was sold on all buildings, so much so that we'd go and look at them together as a bonding exercise. It was always on a Saturday night, and I carried the ladder while he went up and stripped the roof of lead. Sorry, there's more of this. You are able to redress me on this one. Anyway. He is, at the age of 17, he stays with Ocon for only 2 years. And then, there's another one for you of him. And then he makes his way to London, apparently to the Crystal Palace, which was then in Sydenham, and had an art school. Because British art schools were far more liberal than the art schools, say, in Paris or Vienna or whatever. They were quite straight. So artists were given more of a free rein when they came and studied here. I just wonder, being in Sydenham, whether he supported Crystal Palace, but I don't think they were around at that time. But that's where he was. And Edouard Manet was in that part of the world. There were lots of big names in the French decorative arts and fine arts in that part of the world. So what's he designing? He's designing jewelry. In 1885, he buys his own, or maybe in 1887. It's all in my book, which is available from all good booksellers. He buys a ready-made jewelry works from a man called Jules Destape. Jules Destape is going to retire, and so he inherits, and he starts not just designing, because in the past he just provided designs for people like, I've got to think really hard now, but most of the top, Boucheron was one of the people, and the Van Cleef and Arpels, they were called something else in those days. And so here he is. He's still actually designing and making jewelry for other people, but coming around about 1890, he starts using his own name. To give you some idea of the jewelry that he's producing, I'll just give you one. I'm not really qualified to talk about jewelry, as my wife pointed out to me, because I spent most of my married life running past jeweler shops with my wife trying to drag me in. Just to give you some idea, you can see that nature is playing an important role in the design of this brooch. The other influence, of course, at this time is Japan. Japanese design is permeating its way through all of the arts. And you look like you're well read. Well, you wouldn't be here if you were well read, would you? But those of you who and a show of hands, please, if you have read The Hare with Amber Eyes. Oh, you've got some way to go, honestly. I asked that question in Accrington, and virtually every hand went up. They had actually misheard the title of the book. But anyway, here he is. And the idea is that he's taking nature, and that particular brooch is just studded. Those are all diamonds, so massive. But he's also goes to sculpture lessons, and he gets pretty good patronage from this lady for a start. If you were getting patronage from this lady, anybody recognize her? Go on, don't be shy. We're all going back to somebody's place for drinks after. Where? No, it is. Say again. Yes, it's Sarah Bernhardt. Sarah Bernhardt was the biggest noise in Western culture in this time. And this time is around about 1900. She was the one that popularized Alphonse Mucha and his posters. So once you got her patronage, that was it. But then she introduced her friend, which is this man, and that is Carolus Gulbenkian. Big mistake, Sarah, because Gulbenkian went and bought all the best pieces that Lalique had actually produced. He would walk around the workshop, look at a drawing, and say, I have that. Well, I don't know if you say that in French. I have that, you know. This is Mr. 5%. Is it Mr. 5%? But he was a petrochemicals man. 5% of any petrochemical was going into his pocket and wallet, should I say. But then he comes up with remarkable things. They do say that Lalique's jewelry is one of those things that was meant to be seen rather than worn. But have a look at this. Now that is a corsage. It is about 12 inches or 13 inches top to bottom. Ladies, if you wore this, you would be noticed. Gentlemen, if you wore this, you'd be avoided. So, what can we tell you about it? First of all, those wings are plique à jour. In other words, they're semi-transparent, rather like the stained glass that we're looking at in this church. It's a remarkable technique. The wings are hinged, and if you look at the actual slender thorax, it's got quite a sharp pointed, sort of thing. If you drop your hanky, you'd have to be very careful how you pick your hanky up. And as for the head, let's have a look at the head. That's a carved chrysoprase. And so you're left with a question. I'll just go back. You're left with a question. And that is this woman being devoured by so gargantuan a dragonfly, or are we witnessing a metamorphic moment when she is actually exuding from the jaws of this rather ferocious-looking insect? I remember when there was a big exhibition at Goldsmiths Hall for Lalique jewelry, and this is now scary, isn't it, when you have to say 38 years ago, isn't it? When you're still 28 between your ears, it's terrible. But I remember at the same time, the queues were going around the block for the Fabergé exhibition. And I thought Fabergé paled into insignificance compared to Lalique. But anyway, and if he wants a call with nature, sorry, I didn't mean to say a call of nature, but a call with nature. You can see here he is using very simple forms, very non-expensive forms, because Lalique is interested in making sculptural jewelry whereby it's all about fitness for purpose. And in this case, that is a form of cow horn, which, and if you heat cow horn or put it in hot water, it becomes very malleable. So it's been cut and it's been stained. And the only luxuriant element is that blade of grass, which is grass between the swallow's beak. And that's one of a series of hair combs. There must be about 50 or 60 that he designed. And this is all happening between, let's say, 1895 and 1907. So here's another one. This is not glass, by the way. This is, in actual fact, an example which is carved. It's quartz. There is a name for it. And it's at moments like these that I start to shake, because I know what it's called. I know exactly what it's called. But it's at the back of my brain. The last time this happened, I was doing a live radio interview with a certain Mr. Vine on Radio 2. So it is. Come on, Nick, help me out on that. Well, do you know what I'm talking? Would anybody like to help Eric out? It's no, it is a fluorospar, but it's in my book anyway. That's all I'm going to say. All right.
You have to buy the book.
No, honestly. Well, no, is it me? But I'm at that age where it's not. You're all nodding. Oh my God, you're my people. Yeah. Look at that. We're still fascinated with colour TV, aren't we? Exactly. Anyway, what is interesting about this particular piece is the very fact that you've got two lovers in an embrace. So French. But the actual mount, the frame, is barbed branches. Now, what are we supposed to think about that? That love can be sublime, but it can be painful, if you know what I mean. And as we move on, in the vain hope of that medium coming to mind, well, let's move on to something which I know is glass. Okay? So here is a very distinctive, it's actually a pendant. And you see here there is symbolism, as there always often is with Art Nouveau design. You can see that he makes use of a blister pearl. Blister pearls have been ignored, really, since the Renaissance time. You rarely find Georgian and early Victorian jewelry with blister pearls. But this lady, and I think it is a lady, because you've just got to be very careful these days, has got her hair. And in her hair, she is adorned with poppies. Now, if you look at that face, okay, now I'm not one to cast aspersions, but it strikes me that she's been smoking something stronger than a woodbine. Okay? However, I can also remind you that when it comes to poppy flowers, they are also emblematic of sleep. So maybe she's just dozing off or whatever. But, and it would have been on a chain, and the chains are often equally ornamental as the actual pendant themselves. Let me introduce you to a neighbor of his in 1907 who invited René Lalique around to discuss an option. There he is. Ladies, you should bow. This is Francois Coté. Okay. So he invited Lalique. Lalique had also set up in the Place Vendôme by then, which is quite a good address if you know Paris. And he invited René Lalique in, and basically he wanted him to design the labels for his perfume bottles, which were being made by Baccarat. Okay, so I'm going to use some French now. Are you all right? Okay. No, I took German at school. Anybody here from Germany? Good. It's just that when I told my granddad I was learning German, he said, Eric, that'll probably be just in case. Make of that what you will. Anyway, so I'll do this now. This is my best French. René, the reason that I have invited you here today is to discuss making paper labels for my... No. What do you mean, no? No, I tell you, Mr. Coté, that I am only doing this if I design the bottle and the label. Okay, René, chill out, my friend. Okay. Did you understand all that, really? Yeah. Years and years of... Yeah, anyway. So he did, and it was the best move that Coté ever did. I'm just going to show you a box of testers. Can you see these? You remember these, Nick? We saw these at Bonham's all those years ago. And those were made to go on the counter of people who are dispensing perfume. The bottles were quite pedestrian. But that's the label, by the way. And basically, we've got these very slender, nubile ladies, and they're actually holding bottles, and the vapors are spelling out the name, the perfumes of Coté. I mean, it's an imagination, isn't it? The fertility of this man's imagination is breathtaking. It really is. And here is his first commercial perfume bottle. There it is. And it's a bit strange. This is about 1907, 1908. And it spells out the Effleur of Coty. And the top, actually, should I say, the panel is very Art Nouveau, wouldn't you agree? Yeah. But the top is very Art Deco, because those are sort of cicadas or some sort of insect. But the point is this. The combination of the name Coty and Lalique because by this time, Lalique was the #1 jeweler in the country. I mean, no, he was, he's being bought by heads of state, royal families, and the big money on the eastern seaboard of America. So the point was that your great-great-grandmother would have bought probably perfume in a pedestrian bottle, almost like a test tube. And of course, they all had their own cut glass bottle, didn't they, with a silver top. And what a fiddly business it was to actually then decant into your own perfume bottle. And heaven forbid the man that didn't put several newspapers on that table, because if you spilt, you didn't do your table any good. So it's ready-made and ready to go. Okay, and that was revolutionary. And so here's another one. This is one we sold at Bonham's. This is version 1. Now, we found out at Bonham's that if you could, if you got a bottle with original contents, it made such a difference. People, really wanted it. And in this case, we discovered that if we put a few granules of Nescafe coffee in there and water, and we filled that up, then it went like a rocket. It really did. Now, I think you're going to like this, Nick. You're going to like this. But we had a general factotum at Bonham's called Michael Earp, did we not? And Michael Earp stormed into my office saying, I've had a letter here from a lady in Arizona complaining about a Lalique perfume bottle. Which one is it? It's Mepla de Syrie. Yeah, oh, I know that one. Yeah, well, she said when she got it and she dabbed the liquid behind her ears, all she got was a brown stain. So we were warned off from ever doing that again. Anyway, and what about this one? Anybody seen one like this? What you're looking at is basically, that's the stopper. That is the stopper. Look, she's in bar branches. Is there a theme here? If it's my wife, I'm going to be late tonight anyway. So, honestly, that's my chairman. Anyway, so have a look at it. If you've got one, 078 33 453 and ask for moi, because it is rare. I know of only 4 others in the world, and 3 are in America. But that is the bottle, a tiny little bit at the bottle, okay. But if you have got one of those, the market's up and down, but I think that would make between £300,000 and £400,000. Oh, pin money to you people on the Isle of Wight, I know, which we know about. If you went to listen to Laura early on, pin money was something quite substantial. Yeah, you've got to keep all this information. Anyway, moving on.
Just remind me, Eric, I seem to remember that some lady brought in a bottle without the stopper once. I think it was your very first Lalique auction sale. You sold it without a stopper for £30,000, right. And you said had it had the stopper, it would have been worth £75,000. And then she spent the next 4 Sundays going through the local fairs or whatever it was where she found the car boot sale, trying to find that stopper, but no, she never did.
No, she never did, and it went. It really affected her, Nick, and she was committed on. And you didn't give her the right information there, mate. Anyway, but there is something in what you say. Sorry, I met somebody in New York and gave him lunch one time, and he used to keep saying, "There's something in what you say," and without name dropping again, that man was Quentin Crisp. I'm such a name dropper, aren't I? Don't worry, Nick. I drop your name, Nick, more than anybody else's. So let's move on. Oh, and what you want is something where you've got the original box. So we sold this without the box. Can you believe it? What I'm trying to say is the first one was without a box, called La Belle Saison. Anyway, I'll tell you later, but I used to write for a certain magazine. And a lady picked up the magazine somewhere in Uruguay and said, "I've got that bottle, but I've got the original box. Could you sell that?" Yeah, so I did. But it's all a bit convoluted. We're doing all right for time. Are you all right for time, everybody? Because I've got special permission to go on a bit. Is that all right? I mean, I've got to catch the 10 o'clock because I've... No, it's just... I'm behind with the ironing and she's getting a bit restless. Anyway, the next thing I know, I wrote back, so I'll post it to you. Next thing I know, I get a phone call from Majesty's Customs and Excise at Heathrow saying, Mr. Knowles, we got a perfume bottle here by Lalique, yes, and we are, you need to come along and pay the duty. Oh, really? Right, well, I said, where's it from? He said, Mrs. Santos in Uruguay. Oh, I said, yeah, no, that's a pre-war one. And pre-war Lalique is exempt. I've got it here. It's page 12. Yeah, I've got it here, 125. Section BC. Includes Gallet, includes Tiffany, Lalique, Sabina. Yes, Mr. Knowles, yes. Well, you've still got to come along and pay duty. I said, why? Because it has perfume inside, and there is duty payable on the perfume. So I went out to Heathrow. I went to get it. That's the box. Okay. And as you can see, the perfume had got down to such a low level that I was exempt for paying duty on the perfume. So I left him. I gave him a copy of my book and said, "You need any help in future? Let me know." Never get smart with a VAT man. Anyway, the reason I show you that is that bottle. In that state, well, the first one made £1,000. That one made £3,500 because it had the original presentation box. Yeah. So be careful with your perfume bottles. Paris, 1925. Yes, I would love to be there. He's responsible, together with an architect called Marc Luc Lazande, for that wonderful 50-foot high tower. Can you see it? Illuminated. Each one of those, you can see it's stepped and graduated. There are these figures. Can you see these figures called Source de la Fontaine? Quite remarkable. I'd love, if I could go, if the one program I want to do at the BBC, and I've done a lot of programs at the BBC, primarily because I'm cheaper than all the other experts. But I would like to go back to April 1925 to go to that exhibition. The other one I want to go back to is the 1st of April 1851, and I want to be at the opening of the Crystal Palace there in London. I'd love to have been and seen. Anyway, let's go to church, everybody. There we go. That is the glass church in Jersey. And it doesn't look like a church at all. I mean, I don't want to be morbid, but I've seen prettier crematoriums than and it has got a look of a crematorium about it. But in there is a wonderful an interior featuring angels. That's actually on the door. It is a memorial to Lord Trent, Jesse Boot. Jesse Boot came from Nottingham, and Jesse Boot gave you Boots the Chemist. Oh, you do pay attention, everyone, because there will be a written test before you go. Okay, so I hate to say it's all in the book, but there is these angels here. Can you see these? Yeah. Well, I sent my mother a copy of my book. I do love my mom. Well, she's no longer with us, but I still love her, obviously. But I love my mom. And she said, "I've been reading your book, Eric. Have you?" "Yes," she says, "quite good." Yeah, you can never please them, can you? And she said, "It says in here, in the glass church, that they've got life-size angels." I said, "Yes." "Now, don't mind me asking you, dear, but have you ever seen an angel? And if you haven't, how do you know they're life-size?" You see, this is the sort of logic that I was raised on. You know, don't take it for granted. So anyway, well, she'll know now because she passed away about a year and a half ago. So I'm waiting for her to get into... I've got a friend who's a medium. This is true, actually. And she knows when anybody from the north is trying to get in touch with her, because they always reverse the charge, you know. So anyway, my favorite piece of Lalique, would you like to see it? Oh, come on, everybody. Would you like to see it? That's good. Lovely. Here it is. There it is. Do you like snakes? Oh, I love snakes. I always wanted a pet snake. I wanted to go and take a snake to school and scare Kathleen Bradshaw, who sat next to me. But that's called serpent. And it belonged to a dealer who I knew in Boulder, Colorado. Lawrence Tartaski. I don't know if you remember him, Nick, but him and his wife were larger than life. They really were. Anyway, I went to see him in Boulder, and he said, I'm going to a piece next week, and I'll ring you about it. So he said, he rang me up. He said, we're good to see you last week, Eric. I got a piece here. I said, well, it's a serpent. I said, what color? He said, well, it's a brownie. I don't know. I'm not really good at color. Let me ask Lorraine. So this is Lawrence and Lorraine. It gets a bit, you know. So, Lorraine, what's the color of a serpent vase? Lorraine says it's the color of Diet Coke. So, well, I don't know. Don't drink that stuff. It's not good for you. Remember, I told you. Anyway, it's just a wonderful piece of sculpture, I think. Let me go on to another one, because this turned up about a week after I'd had that conversation. And, you know, the grapevine on the international market. Eric, I believe you've got a Borromée in your next sale. I said, Lawrence, yeah, we have, yeah. He said, is it perfect? I said, yeah, it's absolutely perfect, yeah. He said, what type of blue is it? I said, that's quite straightforward, Lawrence. It's milk of magnesia bottle blue. Touché, I think to myself. Touché. Anyway, I've been looking at your cars. Have you been arriving? There's some money here on the island. And I mean, if you had would you like a mascot on your car? Would you like one illuminated like that? Can be done. He designed 39 different mascots that went into production, done in various colorways. My favorite, this one.
Yeah. Would
you agree? The Spirit of the Wind, or Victoire. It's got two names, Spirit of the Wind. And it's sort of, it's slightly androgynous, but I think it's a lady. And it's sort of Amazon type thing. But the idea of speed, it's all about, you know, what's happening. Land records are being broken. You know, the Schneider Trophy, Air Trophy. That's all. It was all about getting there faster. But my penultimate image, okay, anybody here from Southampton? That's the next to the end one. So I'm only joking, I love Southampton, apart from when Burnley play there. But anyway, this is a lady, this is a bottle this is called Bouchon Cassis. Now, if you buy a copy of my book, No, I'm offering an extra service, because in my book, it says Bouchon Mûr, which is supposed to be French for, say again? Blackberries, yes, right, okay, I was just testing you. Rock crystal, that was the color of that, sorry, it just came. You know, the two lovers, rock crystal. No, don't applaud me. No, I'll tell you when to applaud, and I'll tell you when to stop. Okay. So, anyway, we sell that. We sell it for £7,000, and a few weeks later, maybe about it went into my magazine article. You know, in that magazine. We'll talk about that later, Nick, in a minute. But anyway, getting to the point. In my book, it says Bouchon Mûr. I will actually strike that out for you and put Cassis and put my initials in. That will put it, when you put it on eBay, it'll just go. Anyway, so this radio rings bell. Hello, is your name Eric Knowles? Yes. I'll have to be very quick. My name's Mrs. Clark, and I'm phoning you long distance from Manchester. Yeah. I've been reading my magazine, and There's an article there on perfume bottles, and you've got one there called Bouchon Cassie's blackberries or blackcurrants, and I've got one similar. I said, you mean it's not signed Lalique? Oh no, mine's signed Lalique. But yours had a red stopper. Mine's got a blue stopper, and it's blackberries. Oh right. Do you think you might get £7,000 for mine? I think we would. Should I tell you what I'll do? I'll post it to you, and then. No, don't do that. I'll get it collected. Oh no, don't worry. I'm always down the post office. I mean, they know me in there. Because the silly thing is, I'm called Patricia, so they call me Post Girl Pat, don't they? When they go, I mean, you remember these conversations, don't you? You know. And so, what arrived on my desk 3 days later is a Clark shoebox tied up with string. You know, sort of thing that Julie Andrews adores. Think about that one on the way home. And so, and I can hear things rolling around in there. So I opened it with trepidation. I mean, I wasn't working with anybody called trepidation. I opened it carefully. And anyway, there was the bottle, and there was the stopper. And it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. So we agreed. She said, well, I hope I'm going to get more than 7,000 for mine. I said, I think we can put 10,000 on this. Oh, that'd be wonderful if you can, because I want to buy a caravan in Morecambe. Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, we'll do our best. We put it in for the auction, right? I don't know if you were there that night, but it was a big night, because I went in there and I said to my clerk, I said, "There's a lovely smell in here. What's that lovely smell?" She said, and she was from Northern Ireland. She said, "Eric, that's money. That's what you can smell in here tonight. That's money." So, anyway, and it was like Tokyo Central, you know. Had so many Japanese people, because the Japanese then were really strong. So I opened the bidding on this. And I opened it at 10,000 straight away. 10, 12. 40, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 36, 36. Remember, there's 10% on that on those days. Okay, 30. Right. The hammer came down at £40,000. I know. I had to ring this lady up. Mrs. Clark, it's Eric Knowles here. Oh, lovely. I said, I'll have to be quick. I'm phoning you a long distance from London. Yeah. So did it go? Yes, it did go. It made £40,000. 14,000? No, not 14, 40,000. Hello, Mrs. Clark? Hello? Hello? Oh, hello, Mr. Clark. Yeah. No, tell her I am not acting daft. I promise you. No. Right. Put her on. Yes, Miss Clark. Well, it's a record price. A record price. Yeah. Yes, it was a Japanese buyer. Yes. Yes, we've got his name and address. Yes, we've got that. Yeah. Yeah. Look, and I will confirm this in writing. It's 10 o'clock down here in London. I haven't got a clue what time it is in Manchester. You know. All right. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark? Pardon? Well, that's really kind of you, Mr. Clark. Could you make it vintage Bollinger? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm still waiting for that bottle of vintage Bollinger. Thank you very much. You're all right. Okay. Let me just fight my way on too.
Can you manage?
No, I can't. I feel like I'm looking here and I'm seeing Michael Parkinson.
I remember him when he was 20 and he could do that.
I was 22, Nick. You know, come on, I was
22.
an old man. I was an old man, yeah. So, and I can do this, can't I? So there's a blank. Are you all right for time, everybody? Okay, fine, lovely. Here we go. Do you recognise that place? That is the County Palatine of Lancashire. Do I have any fellow Lancastrians here tonight? Oh,
quite a few of them there.
Yeah, quite right.
You should be going 220,000,
No,
240,000.
I'd have to know if they lived in Lytham St. Anne's before I could do that. Where are you from? Oh, I was there last week. I took my wife there. She hated it. Where are you from? God, where's that? Are you on the Yorkshire border somewhere? Or? Oh, you are? All right. Oh, well, then you get my respect. You know, any Yorkshire folk here, by the way? Okay. I should point out to the audience that Lancashire and Yorkshire are very similar. It's just that in Lancashire we have carpets. Sorry, Nick. You're going to ask me a question, aren't you?
I was.
Go on.
What was I going to ask?
You're going to ask me, where did you come from?
Well, you've just given us the map.
No, but you were quite right. When I came down, you and Bob Smith were always telling me that the mayor of Bacup had been asking after me. They were very cruel to me then.
You couldn't understand what you were talking about.
No, I know.
Most of the time.
Well, I came for an interview, didn't I? And we'll talk about that. But if I can just tell you that Lancashire, and you've been to Lancashire, haven't you?
I was with you.
Well, we did. We went to Astley Hall.
On a couple of times.
Yeah. But I'm growing up in an area which is, that's it. That's my constant. You know, we all have constants in life, haven't we? We lost the Queen. The Queen was a constant for most of us, wasn't we? You know. But that's my constant. It's a hill. It's called Pendle Hill. Anybody, you know Lancashire folk, you must have seen it, whatever. Yes? Your husband's in Burnley. Oh, from Burnley. And he knows that well. Yeah. It's a great thing, is Nick. It's the view from the top of there on a good day is just breathtaking. It really is. You can see all around to the Pennine Chain, Cravendale and Malhamdale, and around to the Three Peaks, and then over there, there's South Lakeland Fells. Silver Line is Morecambe Bay, and that Needle is Blackpool Town. A wonderful, wonderful view. So we must go up there, Nick. I need to get you up there because
should.
Yeah, we should, and we must. But
Next week?
Pardon?
Next week?
No, I've got a plumber coming next week. I think that
I just remembered I've got to go to
right. I've got a bucket under
Barcelona tomorrow.
Oh, you're going to Barcelona tomorrow?
Yes. Bit of America's Cup stuff going on there.
God, I went to Lancaster and you're going to Barcelona, and things haven't changed much, have they? They haven't. But I think we may have talked about Pendle Witches. I think we did when we were up there, but just to give you some indication, in 1612, it was the talk of the nation because 20 of the locals were rounded up on a charge of witchcraft, and most of them either died in the prison in Lancaster or they were hung. But one woman was acquitted, Nick, and I know this for an absolute fact.
Your mum?
No. I will forgive you that. She will insist that you rot into damnation in hell. But anyway, no, because in 1967, that woman taught me maths. So I know full well that she managed to, whatever. I mean, let's have a look at let's look at Townley Hall. You been here?
I did go there once.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I've been there. Yeah. We took the roadshow there.
Yeah. It was 1980 something, wasn't it?
It would be. It would probably be about 1984 or something like that. We did the valuation on it.
We did.
And
the contents.
The contents are wonderful. This is where my gran would take me and my parents would take me. And I think I would go in there and it just would hit me. I think I was an early victim of solvent abuse because the smell of beeswax cleared your sinuses. Not as quickly as changing a baby's nappy, as I learned in later life. But anyway, in there, we've got wonderful things. And, you know, we talked about this in days gone by about how you're learning. And we don't stop learning, do we? We just don't stop learning. We can't. there's just so much to learn about. But in there, we've got the Whalley Abbey vestments. Now, these were in Whalley Abbey, which is about 8 miles down the River Hodder from Burnley. And in 1537, word got out that Thomas Cromwell's men were coming to despoil it and do horrible things to Abbot Pasloo, only because he'd been a promoter of the Pilgrimage of Grace in 1536. A member of the Townley family, all Catholic. All the families in Mull neck of the woods were all Catholic. And they actually, he managed to rescue the vestments. And they were hidden away. Because if you got found with these in your house in the time of the Tudors, you'd be for hindburn and a horrible death. But what you're looking at, those little blobs, they're strawberries. It's a strawberry field. And the needlework in the middle is an orphery. So the needlework, what should I say, the cloth of gold is around about 1490, and it is gold thread, and the orphery is a 1420, and it just shows the story of the Virgin. So what you've got there is the visit of the three kings and the shepherds. And Nick, I know you think it's a one-man show so far, but this is where I need your help. Okay, because there it is. There is the building. And
yes.
Now, I know when I joined you, somebody decided to paint it a certain shade of mustard. Were you guilty of this, Nick?
Well, I wasn't, no.
Oh, good.
But I got a sneaking suspicion it was supposed to be a sort of rather fashionable colour then. I think my mother picked it up, actually.
Oh, be careful.
So you better be careful what
I
you
will.
say.
I knew Nick's mum, because I used to have a Saturday morning coffee with Diana, and because my little boy was going to the swimming baths next door.
In Marlow.
In Marlow.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Bonhams had been bombed a couple of times during the war, and we were renting a place in Knightsbridge, opposite where the barracks are now. And my dad walked down Montpellier Street to Harrods. They had a library in those days. It was on a Monday morning. He changed the book. And he got back, and he realized about half an hour after he got back to the office that he had already read the book. So he went back down Montpellier Street because he wanted to change it again. And in between the time he went down the first time and the time he went down the second time, they put a for sale notice up. And it had been a bomb site. There's one last bit of church left at the back of the building, which is still there.
Yeah.
And the for sale notice had been put up in that half an hour. And he literally didn't bother about the book, got into a taxi, went to a bank, got the cash deposit and put it down on the building, £500 deposit on that building, which is 200 yards away from Harrods. And we still have it. And thank God it's still in the family.
Yeah. And when I joined, you just had a third floor put on, hadn't you?
We had a new floor put on, and that's where before I was made a director, that's where I had my office in the attic, so to speak. It's good.
I think that could have been the attic that I had my interview in.
Probably.
And no, I remember it well. And I don't want to cast aspersions. There were so many empty gin bottles, I can't begin to count them. But it was. Let's have a look at you, Nick, because I don't want people to think I'm being patronising or sycophantic or anything. But you haven't changed much.
Thank you.
Those of you who know this man will know he hasn't changed much. No, really haven't. There you are. Yeah.
You look like a charity auction.
Yeah, charity. Well, you are. And
that
again,
was the Heatherley Art School.
Is that where it is? Yes.
In Lots Road.
I tried to find one even earlier, but it didn't make any difference. Because anyway, I won't go on too much about it. When I started attending the auctions and your auctions, God, you're so. The confidence. I mean, until you do it, you can't explain it, but you did and I don't know, I've not seen you in action recently, but I don't think it ever leaves you, does it? It's almost as though you're asking for a bottle of something or whatever, isn't it? You know, but I've got to say that I'm going to say this now, ladies and gentlemen, and again, I'm not piling it on, but if I had gone to Sotheby's and Christie's, I joined as a porter. If I had gone to Sotheby's and Christie's or Phillips, I dare say I'd still have been there as a porter. Whereas I went to Bonham's, thanks to Nick, you believed in me, you had faith in me, and it was well received, and that in turn gave me confidence to go out and do my best and to think outside the box, as they say. And here's another man. This is introducing Nick there.
Sebastian Pearson. I met him on a cricket pitch when Bonhams and Phillips, son and Neil were playing cricket against a combined team of Sotheby's and Christie's. And he was playing for the Sotheby and Christie team. He was a Oriental. Was he Oriental? When he was there? Yes, he was. He was the Oriental number 2 at Sotheby's. He was also Antiques Roadshow and was a regular on that until very sadly he died. He had a peanut in a sandwich that said no peanuts, and it killed him. Yeah. And I have to say his memorial service at that church in St James's, where all the art dealers and antique dealers and auctioneers have their memorial service, you could not get one other person in that church. He was an incredibly funny, popular man. He really was, and he played the xylophones.
For me, he was heaven sent, because as a porter for 3.5 years, myself and let's have a see, we had Crusher Arnie, didn't we? We had Smasher. We're in a high risk zone in the ceramic world. Smasher Hughes.
Yes,
he's got a wonderful gallery in Belgravia now. But if I can use a Dickensian analogy, he was our Mr. Fezziwig. Are you with me, everybody? I know you know. But, going to work was just a pure joy. Yeah. And then he was the man who was on the first episode of the second episode of the Antiques Roadshow. And he was the man when they were looking for somebody to cover late 19th century, early 20th century, suggested moi, to use the French. So I've got a lot to be... Yeah, I mean, I'm going to move it on because I get a bit dewy-eyed. But I did move up the social scale when I went to Bonhams, and I'll show you why.
Just before we go on, you're just talking about some of the people you worked with. There was another Antiques Roadshow man called Lars Tharp. Yeah. He was a Scandinavian. I think he was...
his parents were Danish.
Danish.
One of them was.
Now, you worked with him.
Yes.
Tell us, if you remember, tell us the story about him finding a very rare European porcelain figurine of an elephant, and the trunk had been broken off the elephant.
Well, you see, Lars was due for have his eyes checked, and I think that it turned out to be...
Well, he had it restored and a new trunk put on.
Oh, right, okay.
He had it restored and a new trunk put on, and he illustrated it in one of the European porcelain catalogues. Yeah. And Eric came up and said, I didn't know that elephants had hairy paw feet. And, of course, there was absolute silence from Lars Tharp. And it was actually a bear.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he had mistaken it. He'd mistaken it for an elephant. And so this elephant came up, illustrated in the catalogue, with a trunk with these extraordinary legs and feet.
Yeah, I promise
You
him.
you shared a desk with him a few times on the Antiques Roadshow, I know.
Have I?
Yeah.
I've not received a writ yet, but it'll be coming. Yeah, and as for Smasher Arnie, he had the distinction of smashing a Ming vase.
Oh, you did?
No, don't notice it. There's an auction going on, and a dealer that we knew came to look at it. He said, it's on my desk. And she went in and looked at it, and for some reason, she put it underneath his desk on a shelf. And when he swung his chair round, le crunch, as they say I've never seen anybody go green, blue, yellow, white, green. I mean, it was mortifying. Anyway.
He was even more mortified when he came to come down to my office and tell me what he had done.
Yeah, anyway, he's still going through therapy. So what am I showing you here? We were selling Lord Lucan's robes.
Oh, yes.
So the press office decided, who looks most like Lord Lucan? And so anyway, they don't. I'll give you a detail. There it is. Can you see? Anyway, and that made page 2 of the Nelson Leader. I'll let you know that. I'm not quite sure where it got into the Nationals, but so I have had that distinction of wearing Lord or Lucky Lucan, they called him, didn't they? Yeah, I don't know why they called him that. Anyway, let's go. We're going to go back north. It will get better, everybody. It will get. I promise you, it'll get better. Anyway, let's go up. So now, listen. Look, pay attention, everybody. It's almost like a mini version of Hardwick Hall. Yeah. Because I know these people are all the intelligentsia. Okay. And I love Hardwick Hall. I like going to Hardwick Hall. And I've made a study of early textiles and Elizabethan textiles. So we did a valuation day there, didn't we? And it was a huge turnout.
It was preceded by the local radio and television saying that an open valuation day was going to be held at this place the next day. And the crowds that came in, I promise you, there was 300 or 400 yards waiting. They were waiting for 2 hours sometimes. It was in the very early days of the Antiques Roadshow, I think.
I think it even preempted it.
Maybe it preempted it.
Can I just say, this is in Chorley, in Lancashire. Chorley that gave you the cakes. Here with you. And never confuse a Chorley cake with an Eccles cake. Okay, sorry. So we remember it for lots of reasons. I remember seeing fabulous things that day.
You did. And I saw a painting, and it was on copper. Well, actually, it looked like it was more on a sort of metal. And I thought it was quite nice looking quality, and I reckoned it may just be 18th century. And I valued it around about £500. Went down to Knightsbridge, and the picture expert said he thought I overquoted, and he then quoted it sort of £200 to £300. It actually made 75,000. It was lucky that it was actually at an auction sale in London, because had it been at an auction sale up in Birmingham or that part of the world, it probably would have been missed completely and somebody would have stolen it at a few £100s. But it made 75,000. It was one of a diptych or triptych by a German artist called Adam Elsheimer. And in fact, there's only today 28 or 30 of his paintings known anywhere in the world. He died when he was only 30 years old. But a very, very rare artist. And we got £75,000, and that was in
Probably about 1981 or 1980.
Today, that's £500,000.
Yeah. Okay, confession time, Nick.
Yeah. I always told the expert that I got closer to the final price.
No. I think you need to tell the people that a certain member of staff found it very useful.
They did.
Yeah, and you know why?
Go on.
Because they were serving coffees from the back of it. So they were using it as... We didn't know at the time, did we? But they were going around with a £75,000 bet. I mean, fortunately, they had the common sense to turn it around and use the back of it, but there you go. Anyway, so Chorley, Chorley, it's a wonderful, it's just had a refit and everything. I'm up in the Northwest quite regularly. I go up there to practice my decent flat vowels. But if you go in there, the ceiling in the entrance hall, in the drawing hall, they've got cupids, and they're pendant. They're coming out of the plasterwork. It's a remarkable building. A member of the Townley Parker family, not Townley Hall, different spelling, but it is of that ilk. And just, are you all right for time? Are you telling me?
Well,
okay.
We're
nearly there.
Running out. I don't know whether or not you can just go through quite quickly.
Yeah, I'll tell you
some of the things, and then we might ask if anybody has a question they'd like to put to Eric,
or a collection they want to sell. So, I'm only joking. So listen, people ask me what's my favourite collection. Dr. Gray, 1980. Dr. Gray sent me 18 chests. Dr. Gray from Edinburgh collected thematically anything to do with brewing, anything to do with burials, anything to do with friendly societies and tobacco, and it went on and on and on. And I learned so much. And he was a mine of information. So much so. Sorry, what am I showing there? Oh, I want to show you this. Okay. So what you're looking at there on the right, can you see it? That's called a rushlight. So it's like a pair of pincers. And the idea is you put a tallow candle in there. And tallow candles were for the poor. And underneath it had Romney. And I'm thinking, was it Admiral Romney's? I rang up Dr. Gray. He said, what you got there, is definitely it's a Kentish. In fact, have you got a copy? Have you got a copy of Gilbert White's Selborne? And I said, well, strangely enough, I have, yeah. He said, which edition have you got? I got the 1887. Oh, you'll have the one with the illustrations by Thomas Buick. If you go to chapter 8, you'll find that there is in there is an interesting dissertation about cutting reeds in the Romney marshes, okay, because they were the best species of reeds that you could ever get. And so I get my book, and there it was. And these are the great minds that I'm just getting the information from. And this one, go the right way, Eric. I want to show you that. Lady turned up. You've got, this will be our penultimate image, okay? We'll have to do away with me working for the Chippendales, and it was just the phase I was going through. And your Dolores Del Rio act as well. So this is I'm doing a valuation in Lewis. Lady brings that into me. Can you see that? Right. And it came with some other paper by a firm called Hardman. Whoa, Hardman. They're designing stuff for Pugin and such like. And I said that I know this lantern. I said it's remarkable. Do you know where the lantern is? Yes, I've got it at home. Have you? Right, there it is. So bring it in. So I recognize this is a variation, one of 3 variations that was commissioned by a top pre-Raphaelite. And here's a detail of it. Do you know what that image is from? Of course you do. There it is. William Holman Hunt. Okay. And it was amazing because I've lectured quite a few times at Manchester City Art Gallery. Okay. And I came on one time. My youngest was very small. Where have you been, Daddy? I've been giving a talk at Manchester City Art Gallery. And then he said, Daddy, yes, do Manchester United have an art gallery as well? No, out the mouth of babes. Anyway, so, and when I knew this was coming up, I got in touch. The lantern, that is, because they've got a copy. That is their image. There are 3. There's one in Kebble in Oxford, and there's a larger one in St. Paul's. So they were in the running, and they bought it. So when I go in there, I see the painting, and I see and anybody looking, I'm just desperate to say, I found that, I found that, and if I'm gonna, this is actually the very last one, okay, and you are sworn to secrecy. If we can keep that amongst ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, if we keep that ourselves. So I think you're going to have to invite us back, because there's a lot more we want to talk about.
Just very briefly, Eric decided that he had got a little small collection of erotica that came into Bonham's, and he didn't know quite what to do with it. Eventually someone said, look, this is quite a collectible area. You should have a specialist auction sale. So he got a specialist auction sale, and a lot of people bought some quite interesting stuff. And actually, he got in touch with Scotland Yard and said, look, I've got to tell you what I'm doing, and I just want you to send some of your people from the Obscene Publications department over to check whether or not it's all right for us to sell them. So we actually...
Sorry, I was working on Crime Watch UK at the time. I think I should point that out.
He was actually on Crime Watch yesterday as well in Cardiff. So he was actually one of the identity parade.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You've got it at Watson Hall, actually. I would stress that I did say that I would not put anything in that erotic sale that I couldn't show my mother. I ran the gauntlet with the Observer, who called me Erotic Eric. The Sunday Times calls me Naughty Knowles. So we did two auctions, and that was the end of it. So it doesn't get any worse than that. And thank you very much, Ever, for the staff for tolerating us. Thank you. But, we don't get out much. We're both going home to do our ironing. And, this might be just a day out for you, but it's a career for me and Nick, isn't it? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
You see, you think you know somebody until you hear them chat, do you? Anyway, thank you, Nick. God bless you.
Very quickly, does anybody have a question that they think is interesting enough that we all can hear?
If you do, can we still do this? Are we all right to do this? Just two questions. It's got to be a burning issue, okay? Oh, lady, gentleman over here.
It's the lady that's down
Okay,
here.
where's the lady? Oh, right. We'll do the lady first. I'll come to you in a moment, sir. Okay, that's it. It's just that I know we've gone over slightly, but not by too much.
Do you have any pieces of Lalique yourself?
Do I? I normally wear what I've got, actually, because I have got some cufflinks. I'll tell you very briefly that I just happened to be in Paris having lunch with the CEO of Lalique, and I told him that my wife had got one of his bags and that they should do the jewelry again. He said, no, we don't do this. We don't do this. We just do bags. Yeah, okay, all right, Gerard, you know. Anyway, about a year later, I'm walking down Bond Street, and I pop in. And I look in the table displays. What do I see but a pair of Lalique cufflinks in the exact design that I suggested. Master Femme. So I said, is Gerard Tavares in Paris at the moment? Yes, I was in Paris yesterday. Get him on the phone, will you? Hello, Gerard. Eric Knowles. Eric, my dear boy, because he likes upon the English bit. Eric, my dear boy. Yeah. I said, George, I'm mindful of a conversation we had, yes, about using jewelry, and I'm looking at a pair of Lalique cufflinks, Master Femme. Oh, yes, Eric. Let me explain. You are looking at your Lalique cufflinks, Eric. Thank you very much. So I got a free cufflink. Yeah, 3 cufflinks. So that's the way it went. Gentlemen, have we got you? Thank you.
Just a quick question. You talked about René Lalique, but post René, is it Mark?
Mark Lalique, yes.
Yeah. What's, is it notable at all?
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, he's the hidden talent. Well, not so much hidden talent, because Mark goes against René, because all Lalique's during his lifetime, he uses something called demi-crystal. So full lead crystal is 24% lead lead oxide, whatever. He uses 12%, so it's just more malleable. The thing is, Mark Lalique goes immediately to full crystal. Okay, so that's the difference. So the glass is whiter, if you can say that. And he's also using lots of sort of Scandinavian design and designs which are very much of the 1950s and early 60s. He's got one vase called Ingrid. Don't ask me why he called it Ingrid. Could have been an old girlfriend, I don't know. But it's got some good curves on it. I did notice that. So, yeah, there is an area which has yet to really, really take off. It's just that I'm just full on with René these days. But it's a very good point. And his daughter, Marie-Claude, came up soon. Marie-Claude Lalique, that's René Lalique's granddaughter. She came
What type? In other words, what type for those?
Oh, yeah, they're both, they're both, when you find them online, they're at a fraction of what their asking prices were, but there may be. Listen, it's up to you. You've got to either like it or you don't like it, do you? But that's just a tip, and I offer that on a mere 10%. Only joking. Right, I think we're done. Are we done, everybody? Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.